Okay guys, so this will be my very first story time. I've never done a story time video on my channel before. I haven't posted a ton of videos recently. I moved, I got married. It's been crazy busy this year. Great year though. I want to tell you about the time that Michael and I traveled across the country and had some really interesting people that we met along the way. So we started off here and we thought, wouldn't it be fun to kind of see a little bit more of the country than we normally would if we just hopped on a plane from here to our destination. So we took a Greyhound to San Francisco, and then from San Francisco, well, on the Greyhound, Michael slept most of the time. And there were some very interesting people on this Greyhound. First of all, there was a girl who spilled her purse over and she dumped a bunch of medical marijuana all over the floor, and she's like, oh no, my medicine. And Michael and I were like, your medicine. But anyways, so that was like kind of funny. And then when Michael fell asleep, we were like, we had the same blanket over our laps. Like obviously we knew each other, we're together. Like I only had my engagement ring at the time, but like obviously like we are together. So Michael was sleeping and this guy across the row from us was like, hey. And I was like, hey, hi. And he has medical marijuana too. And he opens it up, smells it, and then leans over to me and is like,
do you want to smell it?
Do you want to smell it?
Do you want to smell it?
And I'm like, no, thank you, I'm okay. And then he said,
where are you headed?
And I said, oh, we're just going to San Francisco to catch a plane there. And he said,
traveling.
And I said, yeah, traveling, you know, just hanging out. And he said,
are you sure you don't want to smell it? It's pretty strong.
And I'm like, no, thank you, I'm okay, you know, I'm good. And so Michael like starts waking up and he's like, anyways, so that was interesting enough. Greyhounds stop at a bunch of different stops to pick people up, so he hadn't been on there the whole time. But anyways, that was like interesting. So we get there and we get in our, we were like, oh, should we take a taxi? Should we take an Uber? You know, whatever. So we ended up taking a taxi to the airport from the Greyhound station. And so now Michael and I talk about it like these days, we're like, why did we ever do that? That was such a waste of time and money. Like, anyways, because we didn't end up seeing a ton of the other cities that we were in. Anyways, so we go and we arrive at the airport. The taxi was like $85 from the Greyhound station through the city to the airport. So we get to the airport and we're like several hours early. So we just go and we go through baggage and everything and it's fine. We're waiting at the airport. And so instead of going to the Indianapolis airport, we decided to fly into O'Hare, which is only a couple hours away. We were gonna see Michael's mom, you know, see his sister, stuff like that. It just so happens that when we get to, so we were flying to Chicago, but in the end we were gonna end up in Indiana. So something happened. We weren't able to be picked up from the airport in Chicago. So we're like, okay, what do we do? Like, nobody will rent to Michael. He's under 25. I didn't have my license. I couldn't get a car myself. So we're like, okay, we're pretty much stuck in Chicago with no hotel reservations. I think Michael was able to get rental cars from some places, but trying to get a rental car in Chicago on day of is something that does not happen. So we were like kind of panicking, but we don't like to freak his grandparents out. So I think he might have texted his uncle to see if he was, because they all live in the area and it's only a couple hours apart. So we're like, maybe his uncle can pick us up, you know, things like that. We wouldn't have minded staying in a hotel. It's just that getting anything in the city day of is very difficult. So we ended up deciding that we were going to take a megabus from Chicago to Indianapolis. So we take the megabus. First of all, we get in a taxi in 5 o'clock traffic in Chicago. It took us like 96 minutes to get from the airport to downtown, which if there was no traffic and we were driving like on streets like we have here in Reno, it would have only taken us like 15-20 minutes max. So we're like sitting there and we're like, cool, well, here's another $100 towards a taxi, which you're vacationing, you're gonna spend money. Obviously we didn't plan well enough or we would have had a ride from the airport. So we go and we're in the cab and our driver is not talking to us at all. We like to try to make small talk. How you doing? How you been? Nothing. And this taxi was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It had like bulletproof glass between us and the driver, which I guess if it's like a bigger city and it's maybe busy there or dangerous, I don't know. So we get to the Megabus station and we had paid for our tickets in advance. And I was like, oh, let's get these tickets that were like a little bit more expensive, but there's a table that we could play cards or whatnot on while we were headed there. It was like we would face each other, and then on the way there we could play cards or be on our phones, but like be facing each other. So we show the bus driver my phone pass, which has the tickets we bought on it, and when we get in there, there's already stuff on the seat for the seat that we had paid for. And so, but it was like 2 seats and 2 seats, so we paid for the 2 inside so we could face each other. And there was a lady sitting on the aisle, like a nice looking lady, and I was like, oh, is this your stuff? And she's like,
No, it's ladies that got off the bus but told me to hold their seat for her.
and I said, okay, fine. You know, hey, if people paid extra for the seats on the other side of us, I don't mind sitting by somebody, you know, it happens. It's not my bus, I don't own it. So we go and I kind of inch past her stuff and sit myself down, and Michael sits across from me, and this huge lady comes barreling on the bus, and she is like, let me just tell you, she's like a taller lady, maybe 6'3", 6'4". She's got like a do-rag on, and she looks at me and she says,
That's my seat.
and I said, and I pull out my smartphone and I'm like,
No, actually, I paid for this seat, like, it's, you know, I paid extra for it, and, you know, I had paid for this seat already, for this bus and this route.
and she was like,
Well, I guess you can sit there.
and I was like, kind of like intimidated because I'm already like tall and like hefty, and this woman was like bigger than me and scary and mean. And so I was like, I texted Michael and I was like, should we move to another seat? And I've never taken a Megabus. I don't know how it works. All I know is it's got Wi-Fi, and it was our option, and it was actually really fun. So anyways, we go and we ask the bus driver, like, is it okay if we just sit in a regular seat, like upstairs or something? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. So that lady got our table, and she got our, well, she didn't get our extra money, but Megabus got our extra money, and she got our table, and it was whatever. So we go up these stairs and we find like a seat or whatever, and the drive there was fine. Michael slept most of the time. I looked out the window because I like to see new places. So the story does not end here, my friends, because then we get downtown Indianapolis and we need to take a taxi from Indianapolis to Noblesville, about 45-50 minutes, where Michael's grandparents live. So we don't get in the taxi, but we call for a taxi. They say, yeah, they're gonna be there. So we're just sitting waiting, and this like beat up car drives up that looks like maybe like an older taxi, or like a taxi that had been purchased and like just not repainted or something like that. So this man gets out, and he looks like he walked out of a time machine or a Western film or something like that. And he gets out of the car, long Duck Dynasty white beard, big cowboy hat, sheriff star on his shirt, and I'm like, this can't be our taxi driver. And he comes up and he's like, he says like Stefanelli or Michael or Ebony or whoever we had put the taxi name under. And we're like, oh my God. So we get in the back seat and he's like, where are you going? And we tell him, and he's like,
Oh, do you have the money for that?
I'm like, yes, we've got cash, we've got card, like we can pay you in pesos, Pokemon cards, whatever you want, dude. So we go and we're driving, and he's driving like a little bit maybe out of like the parking lot that we were in by the bus station. And so he's driving and we're in the car maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and he looks at me and he says,
Not to disappoint you, but there are no black people where you're going.
and I was like, I said, oh, that's interesting, because I'm not confrontational and I'm not going to be like, you're rude. Like, why would you ever say that to me? Even though I was thinking in my head, like, this is really awkward. So anyways, that was like, you would think like, oh, that would be the climax. Like, that would be the end of the story. Like, you had a racist, crazy man driving you to where you needed to go. So we're driving and we get on the interstate and we're in the car about 20 minutes and the guy holds up his hand. I have a finger. He holds up his hand like this and he says, I lost this finger doing like wood shop or something, I don't remember. And he said, so I had to find an instrument that I could play without my finger. He pulls out a ukulele. I couldn't make this stuff up. He pulls out a ukulele and he starts strumming it. And I said, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to play the ukulele. Like, that's very interesting. So he hands it to me and he hands me this book with like charts on it. And it smells like literally somebody had peed on it. So I have this pee book and this ukulele that I've never played one before. And he's like, oh, hold down this string, this string, and this string. Mind you, he's giving me this lesson while he's driving down the freeway in the dark, in the middle of nowhere. And so I'm like kind of strumming it like, yeah, this is neat. And so like I stop and I just set the ukulele and the piss book in between me and Michael. And I'm like, this is so awkward. And so the guy like turns his light on and he's like,
I don't hear any playing.
And he's like looking in his rearview mirror at me, like expecting me to, I don't know, like throw him a concert in the back of his taxi. So anyways, he goes, oh, don't worry, I have one for you. And he gets out a second ukulele. I don't know if he plays ukulele with his passengers or if he teaches lessons or what. So anyways, so then me and Michael are both strumming like, huh? And he keeps saying like,
I'm not hearing any playing back there. I'm not hearing any music.
I'm like, dude, I've been up since like 5 o'clock yesterday. I'm going on 24 hours. I've been on 57 different modes of transportation. I've dealt with weird people trying to have me smell their weed and a mean lady that kicked me out of her table, and I don't want to play a ukulele for you right now. I'm so sorry. But anyways, we pull up to Michael's grandma's house and this man grabs the ukulele back and starts playing me a song. Now, I am polite and I'm not gonna get out of your car when you're playing me a song. So he's playing me a song, he's like singing, I think it was like Smoke on Water or some song that like everybody knows the chords to. And this man says to me, he stops mid-song and says,
that's all you're gonna get for free.
and I was like, can I just get out of your car, please? Mind you, it's like midnight and he's playing his ukulele, singing at the top of his lungs in this little subdivision where Michael's grandparents live. Everybody's sleeping and here we are pulled up just making a scene. But anyways, that's the end of my story when a racist hillbilly drove me to Michael's grandparents' house.